And I'm just going to start the broadcast. This is live. I don't know who's here, what we're going to talk about. Michael,
Yes,
what's up?
not much. I'm just kind of hanging out. I'd missed the last couple of weeks, and we were talking about some pretty interesting stuff. And then I saw Mr. Schaefer post, "Oh, he's at KubeCon," and I was like, "Oh, I want to hear what he has to say about that." So,
I mean, it's not happened yet. It's the night before. It's KubeCon.
right, yeah, but he's there. I mean, that means something.
I'm not there. I mean, I think it'd be fun to be there, but I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can get some people on here, though, if we come to this hangout.
I think he's going to be on there. He posted the link, so.
Who did?
Andrew. He posted.
Which Andrew? This is Andrew.
Oh, you are Andrew.
In fact,
Yeah,
I am.
I can't tell from your fucking.
I shaved my beard.
Yeah. Well, and your Twitter icon is like an eye.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's you.
It is, in fact, me.
No, I want to hear what you have to say, what you're thinking about it.
I mean, I think that
It's a different kind of paradigm than Cloud Foundry. So.
I don't know if it's a different kind of paradigm in the sense that it's a maybe less comprehensive solution.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that you can do with Kubernetes, but you're kind of on your own to bring your own opinions and like fill in the rest of those things.
Right. They leave a lot of stuff in the containers, whereas with Cloud Foundry is, at least my experience of it was before Diego, right? So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but it seems like it's more like you've got your app, your 12-factor app, and you bring it in and you hook it up to whatever services that you provide out of the Cloud Foundry. But it's more for an app creator to just bring in their stuff and deposit it.
I think that it's very fitting and fair to say that Cloud Foundry does everything it can to be app-centric.
Yeah.
And Kubernetes is giving you maybe like lower level primitives to do things that you could eventually make apps out of, but it's more of that kind of componentization. I mean, you're going to see, and you're already starting to see, what we'll call platform or PaaS-like functionality that will evolve in that community. I think it'll just be maybe more different opinions along the way. I don't know. It's very interesting community to watch right now.
Well, it seems like a tool you could like layer stuff over, right? You could be like, you know what? We're just gonna stack some stuff on this, and it's going to be this platform, or we're gonna stack this other stuff up on top of it to manage it and abstract away the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at what Cloud Foundry is trying to do, its ambitions are to facilitate this app-centric workflow for what I'll call, quote-unquote, an enterprise development team. Which, when I say enterprise here, I mostly mean more than a few, right? So when you look at stuff in Cloud Foundry where you have a fairly thoughtful way to handle role-based access and quotas and connect that all to service brokers and have the proper, based on however you want to do the services, you're able to do things just right out of the box, focusing on apps, where you could build the rest of that stuff up with some of these other tools, but that opinion has to be like brought to the table and implemented by someone else.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see if we can get some people who are actually going to be there. I would love to talk about Cloud Foundry Summit or Recon or any of these other things that were going on last week. I actually went to Pebble Beach last week, so that was very exciting. What do you say?
No, that's cool. So yeah, I'd like to hear more about that. But
Let's see if we can shake the trees and get some kids over here.
Yeah, no, you know, I have stuff rattling around in my head all day. So
Let's hear what's in your head for a minute, and I'll put out the bat signal.
okay. No, I've seen stuff happen in when you say enterprise, right? I see how stuff happens in larger teams, and you know being able to work from this, like, hey, I've got my stuff, I'm going to upload it, or it's just going to be uploaded as part of my CI pipeline is yeah.
I mean, I think that's the end game for a lot of what I would consider mature process is that everything's actually deployed by CI,
Sure.
regardless. Takes a while to get there. Your mic picks up quite a bit of noise right now.
Yeah, is it me? Sorry, I was moving my stuff around.
It's all right. All right. See what we can get. Let's see who will come if I post this kind of craziness. Where are you located?
I'm in the Bay Area.
There are worse problems to have.
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting place. It's there's a little brain bubble that goes on down here that.
I mean, this might not be what we should talk about the whole time, but I thought it was funny how people were reacting to Paul Graham's tweet about the anything that has a union. There's
Oh my God! Oh my God!
we can unlock the potential energy with the startup if there's a union.
That guy, man, I don't know. Like I forget who that fellow was. That
Paul Graham.
no. There's the guy that's doing Starfighter.
Starfighter.
Yeah, it's a recruiting platform, but he's like hooked in with them. TB Thomas.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know this guy. Anyway, it's just funny to see like the.
Yeah.
Not that this is what I want to talk about, but it's interesting to watch all these people that have such strong confirmation bias about how economics and markets and all this stuff works. Filtered through the echo chamber of Silicon Valley and then retweeted back to you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about, though, right? There's definitely this bubble that goes on here.
Oh, it's great. I mean, you just go into any coffee shop and you can hear someone talking about pitching their, ridiculous startup that's, I don't know. I think it's both interesting, exciting, and fatiguing all at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. I found a great coffee shop near me that's run by a bunch of DIY punks, and I go there when I need a break from that.
So if we can get someone who's actually going to be at those conferences, I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah.
I can speculate about how this stuff all evolves, but I'd much rather have someone who's if we could rouse someone who's going, that'd be more fun to talk to him.
You think you could get Kelsey?
I mean, we could bug him. I think that's the hard thing about. I think some of those guys probably are either out because it's the night before a conference, or they're asleep because it's the night before a conference. And that's sort of the way that those break down. What are you using or playing with in your like what do you I don't know what you do. What do you do?
What do I do? What do I do? I don't. Um, so right now I'm playing around and trying to get my head around Kubernetes. That's kind of why I'm like, oh, I want to see what's on your mind about this, because I'm seeing how it's done, and I've played around before and done some work before with Cloud Foundry, so I'm doing a bit of compare and contrast, and definitely I get where people are like, oh yeah, this is, you know, Cloud Foundry is definitely a more complete solution, and it's kind of designed with a certain mindset. Whereas this is really interesting. It feels like it feels like a big erector set. Like when you dump out all the erector set parts onto the floor, on Christmas, and you step on them and you poke holes in your feet, and try and fit it all together. It's cool in a lot of ways. I can actually get it to work, as opposed to like if I was doing like OpenStack, but it's it's definitely. I feel like when I was setting it all up, there were some interesting things about setting it all up and getting it to work, where they have some of it scripted, but the scripts don't always work in AWS, right? Because they're a Google project. So I had to do a little bit of back end work and knocking the edges off.
No, I think it's interesting to watch it evolve, and it seems like there's a nice little ecosystem that's building, and there's I'm reading the stuff they're doing. They're doing some interesting stuff with policy-based network stuff. There's like every other day there's someone doing something with I don't know, like there's the Helm thing now, where there's like a package manager for Kubernetes, which seems weird to me. I mean, I have to go play with it before I really understand it. I just read it, but it's like why do I need that instead of just like if I'm gonna use Docker to make images, like what does the package manager give me over just like?
I've not even heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I could just pull Docker images and have them be named, and then whatever, set up my little replicate controllers, then I don't know. I have to play with it.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem with stuff like Docker packages, right? You're kind of stuck with whatever the maintainer decided to give you, and it's kind of Wild West over there in Docker.
I mean, isn't that what the majority of the stuff getting run on top of Kubernetes is going to be, though?
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing about the Docker images. Most of the Docker images that I see out there, like, I don't know, not most, but a lot of them, you go out there and they're built up on some version of, I don't know, they're built up on some version of Ubuntu, and
it's like, yeah, they're almost all Ubuntu.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that. You can build it up on a lean, you can build it up on a lean image that's just stripped down, and it runs the three things that you need in it.
Sure, or you could just use LXC or Garden.
Sure. I mean, but that's the thing, if you don't, Docker's nice, and I think Docker is that 0 to 60, right? It kind of gets you up to this highway speeds, and it's gotten the environment, it's gotten some weight behind it, right? Some momentum. That's the word I'm looking for. It's got momentum behind containers, but I think that, is it going to be the thing that, is it going to be the way that people go in the future? Because you do have LXC, you do have other things. out there.
I think, I mean, the way I look at it is Docker made the container technology, which has already been in the kernel for years,
Right.
accessible to the average developer,
Right.
right? And where LXC was sort of Byzantine, cryptic, arcane uh, way to get the same effects, but you had to really know systems. You had to know like all this stuff about how that worked to like figure out the right settings and make it work. And it was frustrating. I mean, I doubt most people could go right now and get like the same kind of productivity out of LXC that you get out of Docker in half an hour. Like you're not going to get a LXC thing up in that time.
Right. Right. No, it's definitely you can do some really cool stuff with it. But then again, now Cloud Foundry can take a Docker image and run it. I guess I don't know if you're running it on Warden or whatever, and you're
I
moving
mean,
it.
this is the interesting thing, and maybe this is something we should talk about for a minute. We can talk about this without anyone else. Be fine. That whenever someone says it's like one of these containers or one of those containers, like I kind of think they're dumb. Not that they're dumb, but it's like you're talking about features of the kernel, and,
Right.
and you're arguing over which PID gets to set up the namespacing and the C groups.
Well, no, I mean I get it, right? I get it, and I'm
It's
being
not. I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about like because people really argue about this stuff, right? And then
well, yeah, that is dumb to argue about that.
so what you've also done this is the royal you, all of us, is people conflated the isolation of the kernel
Mm-hmm.
and the way that those processes get managed under C groups and namespaces with the packaging of the root file systems and the layered file systems and the rest of the stuff that's going on. So that is what I think is the most interesting thing is the packaging and the workflows that come out of that, especially the interesting things that come when you have this ability to socialize and share the name indexes. The flip side of that is, a significant fraction of the images on Docker Hub right now have vulnerabilities, but the last time someone ran a scan, it was over 30%. But the arguments or the benefits of the containerized file systems are actually a bigger deal to me than the isolation and the Linux kernel features. When you see what's going on with some of this stuff, like when people talk about Windows and the stuff Microsoft's doing, and they say, oh, Microsoft's going to do Docker containers, they're actually doing it sort of different. So they're doing the image format, and they've implemented the API, but
Mm-hmm.
they're actually not using kernel level isolation. It's much closer to a VM, and then you could do the same sort of thing. What it's actually going to do is it's going to push the VM technology, so that you're going to see people be able to do full VM isolation, but it will start and stop those processes about as fast as you can with the Linux container. Because instead of booting a full VM, like where you initialize and boot it, you just start it with like there's some tricks to do, like in memory, copy on, create, whatever, so that they just start in milliseconds. So then you're gonna have all the benefits of the containers with the packaging of the file systems, the dependencies, and the rest of it, with the speed that people are getting with the OS virtualization. And that's not even considering my, everyone's favorite topic of unikernels. Because why do you even need an operating system? That's ridiculous.
Well, and so let's go back. Okay, so one, that's super cool. Like I hadn't heard anything. I hadn't looked at how Microsoft was doing it. I saw they were doing it, but yeah, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But I hadn't looked at it, and that is cool, right?
Well, I mean, there's a project from VMware called Bonneville. Project Bonneville is basically
yeah, I think
taking
of
It's
So
it's it's taking the container approach to VMs and giving you basically the best of both of those worlds.
that okay, that's cool too. So, but let's go back to what you were saying about the unikernel. So you can take a Docker container, you can build. They call it build from scratch, right? And I'm sure you've heard about it. Like you're building the barest level container. So what's a container format? It's a tar file, right? Basically, So
It's a
what you
it's a
do,
it's a file system. Like you put bits on a disk, and
right?
then you start a process with a new root file
Yeah,
system.
yeah. I mean, there's it's just packaged up, in a file, and it's so there's really nothing to it. And can you just have unikernels as containers? Why not? I mean,
I mean, you certainly can. It's just the ecosystem and tooling around them are not. It doesn't have the same kind of momentum right now. I mean,
right.
I think it will as people realize that most of the things they're excited about for containers are actually more true when you talk about unikernels, like the types of files, the sizes of them, and how fast they can start, plus the isolation, the rest of the benefits.
There's also all sorts of things.
I don't know.
Um,
So if it follows the arc, the adoption curve of everything else, people are going to be really excited about unikernels in like 4 years, 5 years.
it may actually be quicker than that. I mean, there are already containers, pre-built containers that like, oh, I need this, and this, and there you go. There's an 8 meg container that has, your stuff on there that you want, your Ruby or
But
your.
that's not the same thing as a unikernel.
No, it's not. But I mean, it's.
Well, and in some ways, like the containers, the stickiness of containers, on the principle of worse is better. Like we might never get past them. Like we might hang out here for a while.
Right.
And it looks like Craig is up. He's up all night to get lucky. Did you
Hello.
make Did you make it back from Japan?
I did, yeah. Sorry about that last week.
Oh, no sorrow. No sorrow necessary. No need for sorrow.
Yeah, of course, as soon as you asked me a question, the PA came on, and it was just like I couldn't hear a damn thing.
So there's been this string of things. So that you were over there in Japan for the OpenStack.
OpenStack Summit, yep.
So in the last few weeks, we've had OpenStack, Cloud Foundry, Recon, and tomorrow we're going to have some Kubernetes. So what are you guys working on over there?
Well, we just announced local, so shipping OpenStack as a full unit inside your data center, so on-premises OpenStack. And that's really been the push right now to get that out the door.
And this is over there in Blue Box, or the artist formerly known as Blue Box.
That's right.
Now part of the IBM family.
Yeah, now Big Blue Box.
The Big Blue Box. I mean, are you guys having fun? How do you see this whole cloud native container orchestration thing playing into the stuff you guys do?
So right now it's not really touching the stuff that we do, although we have a bunch of tooling that's built for containers. So I have a particular project called GIF-wrap that can package OpenStack services as both, as Yum artifacts, Debian artifacts, or containers, and we've played around with the idea of shipping these artifacts as containers, but for various reasons, and this is probably going back 6-8 months or so, we decided not to, but that's probably something that we may revisit sometime soon. The other thing where we use containers throughout all of our infrastructure, so our CI, everything is all containerized. So I think it's just a matter of time until we bite the bullet on the OpenStack services.
I mean, I think that's the key thing, and that's what I was talking about a minute ago. Is like to me, it's actually the packaging is more interesting than the isolation of like whatever technology you're using to do isolation of the processes.
Yeah, and we can do, even with the Debian and the RPMs, we can, packages and RPMs, we can do isolation with Python virtual enums and whatnot. Uh, Specifically for OpenStack, where it starts to get really kind of weird is when you get into things like Nova and Cinder interactions or Neutron, and how you handle that from a container perspective. So I know a lot of people, like including Rackspace, they have long done LXC containers, but they don't do it for Nova Compute because of things like that. So when we decided to do it, we wanted to do it all, like we're going to do all containers or all packages, or neither. We're not going to mix the two. So that's kind of how we ended up in that position.
I mean, I think that's what is interesting or that's what's fun to watch evolve is we saw some of this come out last week. Is okay, like now you have this problem with networking these things. What are you going to do? And so it's like it's driving some interesting innovation in the. I mean, I think it's in some sense straightforward, but then it's like, okay, like it can't be everything to everyone. Like, how can we do this in a way that will work, that will scale, or whatever qualities we're trying to get.
Right. And unfortunately, we don't have the answer for that yet. So.
No, I think that there's more than one answer, and just kind of, I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting to watch the different approaches to. Okay, like now I have a bunch of these things, and they need to talk to other things. What am I going to do?
Right.
So I saw you just posted the Helm thing that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I saw that, and I decided to dump it in there. I didn't look at it, but you were talking about the packaging around this stuff, and I was just kind of sitting there thinking like, oh yeah, okay, this is kind of along the lines of that, right? You're abstracting this into just kind of like, hey, we've got this stuff here, and it's shared, and you can just grab it, and here's the tool to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that is, and GitHub's a big part of that. You just post a GitHub link.
Yeah.
Like the dynamics of the world that we live in 2015, where you have these communities of practice, and these ideas can be spread and shared and evolved in such a dynamic way that 10 years ago was not possible.
Right. I mean, the tooling around this stuff has gotten so much better.
I mean, it's almost the meta tooling, right? Like there's the tools, and then there's like, GitHub changed everything.
Well, it's a social network that's built on top of Git. Crazy.
Right.
I mean, so I need to jump in. I think there's still so far to go. I was like setting up an entire organization today, and there's still so much difficulty in just setting up your entire operation, like configure SSL certs. Right. That's something you do once and forget, and like there's all these little things I think about what we do, which we have a lot of work, I guess.
I think there's definitely a lot of yaks. They're still alive. And
well, yeah. When are you going to kill the last yak, right? Never, ever. We're killing off old ones and creating new ones, and this stuff's just going to stick around. It's
I mean, I think
life. Hakuna Matata.
Part of it is, and this is not the first time. This is not the first circle of life, but the broken things get fixed really fast, and the shitty things live forever. And
that explains IRC.
I actually like IRC.
I do too, but I also bag on it.
I think it's just there's a dynamic where what's the incentive for someone to go like make all this stuff that much better when it also kind of works. And the point I was making is not that there isn't like tons and tons of stuff that could be better, and I think that's, you know, going full circle back to Paul Graham. Like there's insurmountable opportunity to increase the efficiencies with which humans do things, humans experience things, humans perform things. At the same time, if you look at what software development was like 10 years ago, then you did not have. I mean, I think that most people I knew were using Subversion. They were doing it in a bad way, and there wasn't really, outside of that, you know, local centralized Subversion repository, there wasn't much in the way of sharing. Like you would maybe make a copy of that Subversion repository, or, you know, open source back to SourceForge, which is essentially dead now, right?
Yeah.
Was totally different workflow, and the dynamics that were created when you have the kind of the advent of GitHub are a totally different paradigm. It's a totally different world, and I feel like it's a much better world for what I want to do and what I want to participate in.
I agree. I think GitHub is the missing, you know, social network that engineering has needed for a long time.
And then, you know, the inspiration for Docker, and they'll say this explicitly, came from the workflows that were inspired by, you know, that kind of tool and that kind of system. Don't all talk at once. It's cool.
I used Amazon Workmail today.
Oh, really? I don't even know what that is.
They one of the pain points of setting up like a new complete like website and all this, you know, basic stuff is that you had to like go outside Amazon to have actual hosted email, unless you wanted to set up your own Exchange server. So Amazon created this new product. I'm a huge Amazon like fanboy, by the way, and they created a new like hosted email service called Workmail, and it seems decent. It makes me want to abandon Google Apps for Enterprise. Like I'll probably never have to use that again.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been using Google Apps for the last few companies I've been involved with, so I'm kind of comfortable with it. But like just seeing that evolve, where you have email from Amazon. When did that come online?
I think it's still in a preview mode. Yeah, it feels like they're just getting into a lot more like, I don't know. They're trying to allow you to run your company from the AWS console, I think.
Yeah, I think they announced it last quarter, around the same time that they said we're testing out doing Git repositories.
Yes, they have a GitHub competitor now too.
Yeah, that's the thing that you can be sure from the Amazon perspective, that they're going to try to do pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. Do you know they also make movies?
They make phones too.
Man in the High Castle. I've still not seen it. Sounds good though.
And phones too. That's right. I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah. Amazon's amazing. Execution is amazing. We need a good topic. Like, what's on someone's mind? Unless we want to just sit and talk about the nuances of containers and container networking, and why attaching volumes to containers is crazy pants. At least I'm making you laugh.
I want to hear a good rant about attaching volumes to containers.
I mean, it's not that different than attaching volumes to anything else, right? So I think to me it just comes down to timescales, and like the timescale to manage and deal with data is sort of different than the timescale to manage and deal with anything that is ephemeral. So your actual benefit from attaching it to containers is negligible compared to just using the like relatively mature implementation and to attach it to something else. Like it doesn't buy you anything.
Well, yeah.
Well, we'll see. Yeah.
I mean, but you're right. I think that
I mean, to me, it's actually more about the promises you can keep with respect to the like recovery of data than it is to like, oh, like I got a database and I'm out of volume on my container. Okay, like that's really cool. But then like all the things that happen with data that are good, like that's not the problem. Like how do you deal with all the things that could go wrong with data? Could go wrong with state, could go wrong with those volumes, and what does it actually buy you to have that attached to a process, which is what a container is, versus like all the rest of the mature tooling that's in place right now with the other system. And sure, like okay, you could get there, but your actual benefit with containers to me, or one of the big benefits is how lightweight they are and how fast they are. And like that speed doesn't get, like you're not going to be able to do that with the volumes because the underlying technology to deal with volumes is not ever going to do that. So it's like you attach to a volume, you attach to a container, great, you're awesome.
That's true, but I mean, at the same time, you're probably going to have a full stack in whatever implementation of containers that you have, right? So there's going to be instances where you want additional attached storage to a container, and you're not, particularly using containers for that optimization, but it's still an important part of the stack, right?
Yeah, I think that there's obviously reasons why containers should be able to write to storage.
I mean, even so, prior to my OpenStack stuff, I mean, when I was at HubSpot doing, we had like 2,000 steady state instances in Amazon. Our rule of thumb is the only thing that ever gets a volume is a database, and otherwise you don't even look at EBS at all. So I don't know. I think there are reasons why you want it inside your stack, like in your full stack, but at the same time, I would, again, on the container model, like agree that you want everything to pretty much be ephemeral and be rebuildable from an application perspective, at least.
The thing I wouldn't say you should or shouldn't do things with containers and volumes. What I would say is that the promises you want to keep about state are very different than the promises you want to keep about things that are stateless, and that you should do that in a very thoughtful manner.
Absolutely. That was my less eloquent way of saying the same thing, I think.
I don't know. I think people tend to get excited about what it takes to get something installed and not always give full thought to the management of the life cycle in the second day of that.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at how many people just today forget about containers, think about VMs inside Amazon who are using EBS-backed instances. It's through the roof. And for that very reason, like, okay, if I lose this instance, if Amazon kills that instance, I'm just going to go fire up a new one and be done with it. It's dragging this cruft forward instead of thinking about it more holistic.
You'll also notice, if you're paying attention to this movie, that the preponderance of the outages on Amazon are related to EBS.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I'm sorry, they don't have outages. They just have elevated error rates.
Yeah, continuous partial failure with a little more partial.
Elevated error rates of 100%. They had they had an SES outage, I think on Friday. They were down in US East for like an hour, and they just never updated the status page to red. Just elevated error rates.
We're experiencing elevated error rates.
At one point, I thought about having a little project called AWS CrowdWatch, where people tweeting about AWS being down would actually elevate some kind of metrics dashboard.
Yes, it's like the tweets about it are way more accurate than their actual dashboard. I think whoever updates that dashboard just is looking at Twitter, because it's not a machine or a program doing that. I don't think.
Or maybe it's the person that has to pay out the SLA violations.
I think it's actually, if you go look at the way they wrote all of their, you know, verbiage around this stuff, like they can basically, like you have to be down continuously where nothing actually works for a certain amount of time before it counts as any incident for them. So like if any one thing kind of like responded, then it's like we're up, like we met our agreement.
Sure. I mean, the control plane's up, but data plane may not be, right?
I mean, it's a masterpiece. I'm sure some lawyer got paid pretty well to make it. So, watching this whole thing, I mean, I've done some Amazon. I wouldn't say that I'm 100% Amazon fanboy, but I definitely respect their execution, their capabilities in that ecosystem. Like, where do you see these? I don't know. Is there an equilibrium point between the stuff going on with Amazon? I mean, the VMs are there, but then it's like, and we're all kind of spun up on recreating. That's the funny thing about some of this stuff is it feels like we're recreating infrastructure as a service, but with containers. And then they're already kind of like on Lambda. It's like, hey, here's the new thing, which to me, when I look at Lambda, it just reminds me of stored procedures on a database in some ways. But you kind of need that cloud database first before you can set up stored procedures on it, which like almost no one has.
It's hard to say what is going to happen. I mean, I think they don't even know. They're just trying to do everything, and then something will become the most popular, and they'll be ready.
I mean, I think that one of the things that Amazon's proven willing to do, and maybe more than a lot of other people, is kind of just try stuff, right? Like they don't necessarily insist that one thing wins, and they have one of the things that's beautiful from their perspective is that they get to see like what everyone's doing on their stuff to drive their own roadmap, which is probably annoying if you try to build startups on top of their ecosystem, but I think it's brilliant.
I do wonder, these large conferences like, reInvent or like an Apple product announcement, which companies have to watch these conferences and with a eye to, is this conference going to put us out of business? Are they going to announce something that destroys us?
So someone kind of threw this out the other day, and I didn't know the answer to this, of course, but maybe you all know. Have they sunsetted a product, the AWS? Have they sunsetted anything?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't think they have. But I don't know for sure.
I have to think about that one.
I mean, there's still like old instances out there from like the beginning days.
From the beginning of time.
Yeah.
The first thing I can think of is they've changed. They've like made their security more strict. There's like certain ways that you could access root that you can't do anymore. I don't know if that counts to you, but
no. Well, I mean, it does in a way, but it makes sense too, right? You don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of deprecated a few APIs along the way, but I don't know if they actually sunsetted a full product.
Yeah.
I don't think of an example. I'm not the best one to ask, but I don't have an example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they also enforce VPC now, right? So back in, what was it, 3 years ago or so, they didn't enforce VPC straight out the gate.
Well, VPC didn't exist.
Right.
It's part of it. So that was hard to enforce.
But now you can't get it. You cannot open an EC2 account without it, right?
Yeah. There was I don't know, like I actually had an EC2 account that I hadn't used for a while, like over a year, and I'd kind of been using stuff with other people's, but like I'd never been through like the full kind of set up and getting started again. Whereas like all I really did was like have keys and like I did this thing to get what I wanted through the API. But when I went back and I made another account just in the last it would have been like 6 months ago, and it was like a totally different experience. And there's a bunch of stuff that like the IAM and like the granularity on how you could set up like the multi-user authentication inside of your single account. Like it's really evolved.
No, absolutely. IAM was always pretty granular, but I've been doing the same recently where I haven't used Amazon in quite a while, full blown, and even just this weekend I set up a new account, and I use it primarily for like Route 53 because it's nice and cheap, really fast, works, and usually spin up instances over on DigitalOcean just because it's also cheap. But just even looking at the console, like the number of items in the console is just keeps growing and growing and growing.
So you spin up DigitalOcean instances and use Route 53 with it?
Yeah. So fire up a new domain and then put the DNS records over in Route 53, and then get the $5 and $10 instance over at DigitalOcean.
Yeah, one thing they are not yet is a root certificate authority, unfortunately. But they are now a registrar.
So, I mean, wouldn't that seem like an obvious thing to become at some point?
I think they applied for it. I actually read something about them having applied for it, but they've not. I don't think they've been approved. I don't know how they get approved for that. But that would be nice. Just one less thing I have to do elsewhere.
Yeah, all those yaks will soon be gone.
Yeah.
So what else is there? We have another I don't know 10-15 minutes. I really wish we could get some of those Kubernetes kids. They're probably out drinking. They're probably all getting ready for tomorrow. Running around the city.
I'm sure they are. Did you see the flash of light last night?
Oh, the rocket UFO thing or whatever. I did not see it, but I saw the Twitter aftermath. We lost Joe.
Yep.
What did you see?
Oh, just the tweets about it. People freaking out about it.
The first thing I saw was the Phil Flake was like debunking it already. So like my first tweet, he's just like, yeah, it looks like a rocket. And I was like, what looks like a rocket? And he had this video, and I was like, yeah, I guess that looks like a rocket. I don't know.
It looked like a rocket in the pictures I saw, or looked like something that was trailing exhaust. Whatever. There are mysteries in the universe. That's how it is. If someone knows, then they should tell me, but they usually don't call me.
So Joe took off. He was talking about getting search set up, and I was going to post this.
Oh, yeah, I was going to bring that up as well. Let's Encrypt.
Yeah.
Waiting for those guys to actually get out of beta.
What is it?
Free certs.
Oh, free certs.
Encryption cert.
I think I did hear about this. It's a Linux Foundation collaboration project. New certificate authority, free.
Yeah, all API driven. I think there's Python clients out there for it, but still in beta right now.
You're out there on your whatever box, and you just run it, and you're like, oh, what are you using? You're using Nginx? Okay. Here, we'll generate a cert for you. Okay, yes, done.
So you're using it a lot?
I am not using it yet. I haven't had a need for it yet, but I'm pretty psyched. Next one I get, I don't have to. I think I'm probably going to migrate over once they're out of beta. I've got a few things. So it'll be nice to have actual certs for like everything instead of trying to pile them all up into one host name. You can separate them out.
So let's talk about the OpenStack Summit, since someone that went to that conference is here. Like, I mean, I
Putting you on the
watched.
spot.
No. I mean, I don't. We don't need to go like into all the bad parts about OpenStack, but like it seemed like there's kind of a focus on containers and like some of this other stuff that's going on in that community. So I was just in your sense of it, watching that all go by, like how do you think that evolves, and what is OpenStack's future looking at the at the landscape?
So I haven't. I mean, the project. I don't know if you're familiar. The project that's been around for a while now has been Magnum. I think it was probably introduced. It was introduced in Paris, I think, by the former Solon people.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
Yeah, that was a disaster. But so I think that's where most of the focus has been right now, and people who are interested in getting containers up on top of OpenStack are focusing more and more towards Magnum. There's also the project called Kala, which is what we talked about earlier, which is the OpenStack services inside containers. But to be honest with you, I've been focused on other parts. I was pretty much entirely in the design tracks.
I mean, in some sense, like I'm not that interested in seeing OpenStack try to solve new problems when they haven't even solved the old problems yet.
This has always been my criticism of OpenStack, even as long as I've been doing it, which is there's still missing pieces in that that foundational base that you can think of. So if you think of deploying an app inside Amazon, you're going to use compute, network, storage, and then part of that is probably a load balancer. There's still not really a solid load balancing story around OpenStack, despite many people trying to get one together.
Well, you gotta redo the software-defined networking 10 times before you can solve that problem.
There's a whole story behind that as well that we were involved in with reworking Neutron to get load balancing working. But I mean, there's a project out there now called Octavia, which is meant to be a reference implementation of the new V2 LBAS API for OpenStack. So that's encouraging, but I totally agree with you. If you have pieces that are fundamental to any kind of stack being built out and they're not complete or they're not feature rich, then what's the point of going way up the stack on these other tangents?
I mean, you're going to have a better time when the foundation's solid than you are trying to build.
Right, absolutely.
But actually, the question I was asking was a little different. Like, those guys aren't totally ignorant of what's going on with all these other ecosystems. So, like, what's their? I mean, why do you think, with all the other things that are going on, you need another project that is OpenStack branded project to do some of the same stuff?
I think part of it now is with Big Tent. Basically, you can, if you want to be under that umbrella, you can be under that umbrella. But even before Big Tent, it was this idea that, hey, Amazon has it or somebody else has it, and we need to be feature parity with Amazon or whatever cloud provider out there. And I totally disagree with that model.
Right, but it's like if you see, I mean, like take IBM for example. Like they're going to run OpenStack. They're also going to run Cloud Foundry on top of OpenStack. Probably going to run Kubernetes on top of OpenStack. Like all these other things. You don't have to. I don't know. I guess in the hallway track at the OpenStack Summit, like were people talking about Kubernetes? Were they talking about Cloud Foundry? Were they talking about all these other?
I think more than in any other summit that I've been to, there's been certainly talk about Kubernetes, certainly talk about Cloud Foundry. Definitely much more so in this one. Sometimes it's hard to tell a little bit. I mean, so there was definitely this undercurrent of those things, but when you go to the foreign summits like Tokyo or Paris or Hong Kong, the attendance is down. So it's actually probably even more amplified than what I was even hearing. But yeah, certainly this this summit more than any is, you know, in our case, talking about Bluemix, Cloud Foundry, and certainly Kubernetes.
Interesting. So when you say the attendance is down, just because it's in Tokyo and
yeah, I think just, you know, OpenStack is still pretty U.S. centric, so a lot of companies don't send people to those foreign destinations unless they have a talk or a reason to go. So I think, I don't know what the attendance was this time, but I think I heard it was down like 1,000 from Vancouver. But I think Austin will be probably huge. So
yeah, how big do you think it's planned for?
I don't know. I'm guessing probably around like 7,000 to 8,000.
Yeah,
I don't know what the current numbers are right now though.
That's a big conference though.
Yep.
I've never been to a VMworld before, and I went to one this year, and it was a lot of people.
Yeah, I was at VMware in 2000, when was I there? 2007 to 2010. Even back then, it was huge.
So it'll be how big was reInvent this time? It was like 10,000 or something, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
It might have been more. I'm gonna go look. Anyway, it was an hour of Cloud Native. Does anyone have anything on their mind that they want to put out there? Crazy story.
Yeah, you got to make this an earlier time.
Earlier time? I would love to do it earlier, but then all my kids are awake.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. The problem is my wife is asleep. So.
And then when it's this late, I can sometimes get people in London up.
That's true.
I can also get
people sitting in Narita. They can also.
Yeah, I get APJ in London. No, I would definitely do it earlier if I thought like by the time I get my kids to bed. Whoa, sorry. I love how the internet just like you click on stuff and it plays music. That's an amazing feature.
I think we just lost Craig.
He came back.
He's back.
He came back. Yeah, that's an amazing feature of the internet that you click on a website and it plays music for you. That's great. Love that.
Thanks, Internet.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'd love to do it earlier. I would love to do lots of things in my life that I'm not doing, but this is just one more.
No, I understand. I'll try to chime in here and there.
I would do an interview with you or anyone else from over there, Jesse, the Blue Box guys. We could do it during the day, and we could just do like a little recording, talk about. I don't know. I mean, I think it's funny, or it'd be fun and funny to talk about OpenStack distributions with Jesse, given the.
Well. He had a fair number of talks about, panels and actual talks at the OpenStack Summit. I think he had like at least 3 that were on distros this time. But
I just don't understand what definition he's using, and then like how that means.
Well, I think the definition that we've always had is, there's tons of companies out there, including competitors, that they literally mail you a CD and they, you install it, or even they install it, and then the operations burden is on you, right? Or, we kind of believe that, you should own your uptime to a degree, right? Right? You should be owning your application. You should be owning all aspects of that. Your core competencies lie, but running OpenStack should probably not be the thing that you do.
But at that point, you kind of you're like, what's the open sourceness of it at that point? It's like just
insurance, maybe? I don't know.
What's
I don't
that?
know. It's interesting when you start to think about the 4 freedoms of the. I don't know. It's just a thought. So then the model. The model is someone you always run the operations.
Right, but we are pure play OpenStack. Like, our bits are literally coming straight from GitHub, and going down on boxes in our opinionated way, but
That's what you tell me.
well, you
How
can
do
go look
I
in
know?
GitHub.
But I don't know what you put on my boxes because you're the one doing everything.
This is true. This is true. But you don't know that with Amazon or DigitalOcean either, right?
That's
But
for damn sure. We should have a talk one day about like how security is actually broken unless you own the hardware. Like unless you have like
no, that's the model that we're going to, right? That's our
No,
local
I know.
deployment.
Well, it just means you have a lot of trust
This
for
is true.
whoever has physical possession of those systems. You have to
Yep.
have a lot of trust.
Yep. This is true, especially in compliant applications, right? So if you're HIPAA or whatever, then even more so.
I don't think anyone's actually doing security right. It's going to be a while before anyone even tries.
Well, I think we try, but I'm not sure we always get it right.
Well, I just think that there's a certain rigor that you would, if you wanted to have. I mean, I think there's a way to do it that is starting with the, TPM or something, that you have signed cryptographic every aspect of every bit of code that's run, every request has an identity that's authorized. Like, there's ways to do it. It's just, going back to the worse is better. Like, no one's actually gone through and like structured that framework so that you haven't made doing the right thing the easy thing, so no one's doing the right thing.
Right. This is like a herd of yaks.
Yeah. I kind of want to make a joke that, about Yak Lives Matter, but like, seems like I probably
Too soon, too close. Yeah.
seems like I probably shouldn't.
Yes. So what I posted in there was there's a Twitter account, Sad Server. You may have seen. So he did a thing at Puppet Labs for one of the conferences, and it's kind of funny. He goes probably about 5 minutes too long, but it kind of drills down into why things are bad and what is bad about them, and then he kind of comes back with this why things are better. And this kind of goes back to what I think it was Joe was saying, like, well, there's still a long way to go. Yeah, there's a long way to go. And, to me, like, I've seen all this shit happen in IT. I've been doing it for a long time, 15 years, and maybe longer. And, I remember having to, set up RAID arrays by hand and edit things. Like, I had to upgrade a server and I had to log in and edit with Ed to edit this fable. To upgrade the server because some pooched the file tab. Things. We're going to keep. We're going round and round with this stuff, right? It's going to get. There's things that we're going to fix. There's more problems that we'll create for ourselves. And I think security, like you were saying, is definitely one of them, right?
Yeah, I think it's a question of the exposure, and it's always kind of an arms race, right? And at the point where something's trivially exploited, then like okay, people will start to fix that. But like I don't know, having thought about this problem just a little bit, it seems like there's another way that could be much more systematic and formulaic than what most people are doing and thinking about.
I think you're right that I think you're right that yes, there's better ways that people could be handling this. But the flip side of that is, things aren't getting trivially exploited anymore. Big companies are losing millions and millions of dollars and more on this stuff. come to the attention of the people with the checkbooks. So
Yeah, but I mean, I still work with plenty of places where, and yeah, I would say that most places are still pretty poor at actual security.
well,
Other than like the theater of it, right? Like there's a certain compliance theater that goes on, but in terms of actual security, like if someone was so inclined, and granted, you're never going to protect yourself. You're probably not going to be able to protect yourself with much certainty against the state level
sure, yeah,
actors, but
Mossad. You'll never protect yourself from this Mossad. If they want you, they're gonna get you. But
or the Chinese or whatever, right?
yeah, randos.
But
Yeah,
but outside that, then yeah. Anyway, it's a long topic that is probably a ways away, and in some sense, it's like at the point where I think you kind of alluded to this, the incentives, the monetary incentives to do it the right way,
yeah.
are greater than doing it the wrong way, then it'll happen.
Well, and the other thing is, I'm gonna invoke your 4-year rule here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I think as we get to this world where everything's so ephemeral, like how do you even know anything happened, right? Like if you don't have much better auditing on some of the systems than most people have right now, like
Yeah.
like you could have been exploited, you don't know, like constantly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of one of the great lines out of the why everything is just the worst. And he's like, yeah, basically his line was some like we went from log or no, monitoring went from horribly shitty to moderately terrible, and that's a big improvement. And I think that we're going to go through these iterations with this stuff, right? It's
Absolutely.
pretty shitty right now.
I did like that line from that doc, actually.
I don't know. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We'll be or sideways, whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Oh, it's all the humans' fault. Blame the humans.
In fact, this is provably true. We'll go with that. So until next time, humans. How about
Yeah.
we
3 times.
do again? Like I said, take me up. Let's do a little cloud native in the light sometime.
We should.
We'll get Jesse and we'll just talk about all the stuff. I mean, you guys are you guys getting exposed to the Cloud Founder stuff over there too, or you're all OpenStack all the time now?
Uh, so we're dealing a lot with the Bluemix teams and getting them up and going on our platform, but not touching Bluemix directly yet.
Because Blue Box used to do some Cloud Foundry stuff back
Yep.
in the day.
Yep. In fact, one of our biggest customers is a very large Cloud Foundry user. So, and I think an early one too. So we had some interesting experiences with early days Cloud Foundries.
Yeah, Cloud Foundry's evolved a little bit too.
Yes. We found a couple things that were promptly taken care of. So
Anyway, here we are. How about I'll reach out and we'll do that, and we'll figure it out.
yeah, you
All
got
right.
it. Take care,
Until
guys.
next time. Stopping the broadcast.